Brother Justice is in the studio, as we said before. Have you got the information that you read out last week?
Yes. Greetings, everybody. Brother Kwame and Brother Cecil. I'm really honored to be here once again to continue the discussion. Just to remind everybody about the BEAD lecture. BEAD stands for Biafra Education Awareness Day, which we're scheduling on the 11th of August this year at Goldsmith University of London Lecture Theatre. It starts from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock. It's on a Saturday. We're going to discuss issues to do with Biafra, share our knowledge, if you like the bead of knowledge, hoping to string those beads into pearls of wisdom that will help.
Wow, nice image.
That will help to the survival of our people. So you're all welcome to come. Thank you very much.
Okay. I did give a shout out for the people who's organizing the Agu Storytelling Festival, African Storytelling Festival, but nobody has rang for it so far. So Sister Akiba, if you're listening, just ring and give us a shout of what's happening. Okay, in honor of Buche Emecheta, from 1944 to 2017, Shanti's Chi presents Agu African Storytelling Festival, which starts at 2 p.m. Friday, the 27th of July to 2 p.m. Monday, the 30th of July, 2018. That's next strong N, as we would say at Galaxy. Right, the number to ring is 07582 22 89 67. That's 07582 22 89 67. Or if you want further information, just send them an email to or she-mail to info@shanti-chi.com. That's info@shanti-chi.com. Yeah. All right. Also, as you should know, this month coming, the 30th, Galaxy Radio return to the Crown Court. So they're strongly going to be possible no great show next Monday because me and Brother Cecil will be down at the court supporting Galaxy Radio and Dr. Abu. Yeah. So you know, just keep tuned for that. All right. So nothing further to announce. Let's go straight in. Last week we had Brother Justice on the program, and he was giving us a good history, I would say, on the Biafra. On Nigeria as a country, and also the Biafra situation. And we decided that
with the Biafra as a country coming before Nigeria as a country.
All right.
Well said.
So you know, we decided that there wasn't enough time given to people calling in because no use we have somebody here to give a history of something and then we don't let them give the history. People just ringing and asking whatever they want to ask. So I had given them sufficient time to lay out the historical groundwork of Nigeria. All right. So you've heard it, or you should have heard it last week. If you haven't, then you're gonna have to you know, listen and you know, ask pertinent question that you wish to ask. The number, let me read it out twice. No, 0207-193-0174. That's 0207-193-0174. So if the sister that rang in just a while ago, if you have a question to ask, now is the time to ring in. Yeah, we have the next 2 hours and 15 minutes or 14 minutes to ask question. So please do. All right. So, Brother Justice, I would consider myself a Pan-Africanist, yeah?
Yes.
Which means that we want the total unification of Africa, yeah? And to me, what the people from the Biafra are doing is trying to break up Nigeria, which means further breaking up Africa. What's your opinion on that?
Yes, Prof. Kwame and everybody else, this is a very, very important question, because in the drive to decolonize Africa, if I can use the term, when the colonial masters have carved off Africa into various little boxed nations and trapping all their indigenous populations, there was a need to first of all extricate ourselves from those colonial rule, and the vision of people like your namesake Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana had. We say yes, Ghana is free, but Ghana will not really be free until the whole of Africa is free, and that sort of concept was what drove the decolonization drive. Now, in the Nigerian setting, Nigeria being the most populous of all the African countries, well, obviously, the emphasis of keeping Nigeria one is what instinctively people would prefer. And I can understand that. But do we keep something together for the benefit of the colonial masters or for the benefit of African development? I think unity must come in stages. You have to first of all unite with those who want to be united with you. Whilst the colonialism was in place and the drive to drive them out, there was a section of Africans who didn't want to be decolonized. And that is, in the Nigerian setting, they were the northern part of Nigeria. They resisted decolonization. They, in fact, set up a system which retarded Africans becoming colonized. So Nigeria would have got its independence before Ghana, but the northern part of Nigeria were not ready to be independent from Britain. So Britain seized on that and used to drive a wedge between those who are trying to get Africa freed from colonialism. So I will say, therefore, to you, the actual emphasis on getting the whole Africa as one was driven by those those people who are fighting colonialism, like Nnamdi Azikiwe, Awolowo, and so on in Nigeria. But when they managed to secure the independence, it almost became like a paper independence, a flag independence. Like there's a change of guards, so that when the white people left, they handed you over a flag, but they are still ruling you indirectly. So with that, they were able to subjugate the Africans even more than when they were white people ruling. So much so if you go to any village, depending how old you are, a grandmother will say to you, when the British were ruling, we were better off. And that is precisely what was designed. So you give power to those who they thought was in the safe hands from the British viewpoint to rule the country. And if you look at Nigeria, it had such potential to have devised a system which united, first of all, the whole of Nigeria, moving and mushrooming into other countries, and therefore spreading that knowledge of independence. So just like Nkrumah had, they're all Pan-Africanists like yourself. But the system was such that they weren't allowed to do that because there are some corners of Africans who prefer, for God knows why, to keep the rest of Africans down. And that led to a misunderstanding among the brothers. So where you thought you had a country...
And sisters.
And sisters. No, sorry, sisters. That leads to a misunderstanding between brothers and sisters, where the whole thing became decentralized and tribalized. So it's no longer this country belongs to all of us. It's we are the part of the country that's supposed to rule in perpetuity. So that created tension, which led to things unraveling. So they unraveled almost to their tribal level, so that you need to now, first of all, secure those bases where they've unraveled to, make them stable, to then know the need to join hands willingly to unite the countries again. So my take on it is that the current situation, particularly in the Nigerian setting, is such that there's an inbuilt divisiveness, which means one tribe before the country. And this tribal affiliation, being stronger than national affiliation, actually hinders Africa's progress. And we need to get to the root of it so that everybody, for example, in the Nigerian setting, we're looking for a referendum where we say, right, do we really all want to be in this particular, what we call Lugadian cage, Lugard being the person who joined Nigeria together. Do you all really want to be in this Lugadian cage, or open the actual door so that people will come out and voluntarily want to join back together or stay apart for the interest of minimizing bloodshed?
And I did mention last week, that in 2008, the CIA put out a report that by 2015, Nigeria will be split up into 4 different countries. Yeah? You did mention it was some sort of prophecy. I mean, can you reflect what you think of such of a report?
Yes, it's like, what was the term? If you prophesy something, then you go ahead and fulfill it. I don't think it could have been taken as a warning to prevent it happening, for the sake of the global African. But because it was not heeded to, it's like Nigeria have fought a civil war. Rather than putting in place things that could have kept the country one, they put inside the forces that would pull things apart. So when it came to 2008, so many years after the war, it was obvious from the CIA, from the American report, that they are not ruling in the manner that will unify the country. Instead, they will polarize everybody. And the very last government of the last very election we had, 2015, has demonstrated beyond any reasonable doubt that is your tribe first and then the country second. And in so doing, you therefore have a Fulani person who's ruling as a president. So the head of army is Fulani, head of navy is Fulani, head of air force is Fulani, head of police is Fulani. So as though in the country we have over 300 different ethnic groups, only one tribe should rule everything. That leaves, in fact, causes the root for all our disagreements, because no one country has a monopoly of knowledge or wisdom, and therefore can't possibly hold everything together. So the prediction is not, it was not made, if you like, because they wanted Nigeria to fall apart, because it's to their advantage colonially, colonial masters, but it's a warning to tell them that unless something changes, Nigeria certainly is going to, because of centripetal forces, something from pulling them apart, is going to lead to this division, which is unfortunate.
Right.
I think I have a little comment on that. Clearly, there was nothing natural about Nigeria as a country, as an entity.
Yeah.
It was a colonial creation, and it came out of the moment when the Europeans gathered in Berlin in 84, 85 of 18. So repeat, there's nothing natural about the way Africa was carved up. It therefore follows that there are African peoples all over the place who are divided up, who have colonial boundaries running down what used to be the previous, the earlier natural entity. Now, there's clearly no necessity to say that in all of those circumstances the colonially created state has to be put out of the way. But consideration has to be given to that. And crucially, what is important is that no African people legitimately feels oppressed by another African people. And undoubtedly, in the case of Nigeria, it ended up with the Igbos not just feeling oppressed, but actually being oppressed. It ended up with them being murdered on a mass scale in the north, and then dying in that horrible war. I'm old enough to remember all the details of it, all of those pictures of starving Biafrans and so on. Absolutely horrible. And so some serious effort to address the aftermath of that. Igbos are not happy being in this entity, this non-natural, this colonially imposed, this now northern peoples run and dominated entity. So there's something inherently wrong with that state of affairs, and Pan-Africanists cannot say to Igbos, you have to stay in this because, in the interest of broader African unity. The issue needs to be addressed and the problem properly solved. So that is my own position on that as a Pan-Africanist. There's nothing natural about Nigeria, and the history of the last 50 years has been one in which the Igbos genuinely felt oppressed and still feel now put upon by the way in which Nigeria is currently run. And so they have a right, it seems to me, to national self-determination.
That's well put, in fact. To add to what Brother Sasso said, there were some African countries that recognized Biafra during its war with Nigeria. Zambia, Tanzania, Gabon, Ivory Coast, and of course in the West Indies, Haiti also joined in. They all said there was a setback to African unity. We all recognize that. There was a setback because, as I said, Nkrumah wanted the whole thing to be one big African country. But because of the killings, the genocide, it's like you have 100,000 people killed, say from May to October. You force them to leave the part of the country they thought was theirs into their own villages. And there are 2 million people returned. Plans to rehabilitate them was, dashed. That led to a war, a bitter war. But it wasn't a war that Biafrans wanted to fight. It's a war they had to survive. You kill them outside Nigeria. They come back to their part of the country. You still kill them to bring them back into Nigeria. Do you see? So as a result, an estimate between 3 to 5 million people died. If it stopped there, Pan-Africans would say, well, Igbos, this is history. Let's shake hands and get on. It didn't stop there because you won the war, but then you proceeded to lose the peace. I mentioned last week, if you were in Nigeria before the war started and you're an Igbo person, you ran away from your office. You left your money in your bank. After the war, you survived the war. You went back to your bank manager. Say, Mr. Bank Manager, say, yes, welcome. I'm really glad you survived. Yes, okay. Well, I now need to rebuild my family. Here's my account. Tell me how much I got in it. 2,000. So you rub your hand. I got 2,000 pounds. And those days, 2,000 pounds was proper money. Was equivalent to British pound.
Yeah.
Can I have some of this money to rebuild my house and things? You're not allowed. You're only allowed 20 pounds. But I had 20,000. No, the government said you only allowed 20 pounds. I'm just going to mention that as one of the key planks. So somebody survived the war, unlike in the World War II, where you had Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan is the Americans, they got their money together to rebuild Germany that was devastated, knowing that if Germany was stabilized, there'd be no need to have further war. But in the Biafran case, not only did you destroy everything they had in the north and the west before they went back to your country, you destroyed them in their own, and then you brought them back into Nigeria and denied them their own money.
And if you add the oil to that part of the story.
We're coming to that. You deny them of their own money. So, okay, maybe they're going to use that money to rebuild the country. And as a punitive thing, which they did in the First World War. If you remember the First World War, because the Germans caused the war, let's take all their lands, the Alsace-Lorraine and all those places, and use it to rebuild for reparation. And that led to Second World War. So if you took their money, the Biafran money, to try and rebuild Nigeria because you blame them for causing the war, which they didn't, then one can understand it. But the actual money to rebuild the country is coming from the oil money, which is in Biafra land. So you actually had the money not only to allow them to have their own money, but actually to compensate them for their losses. That wasn't all. Some of the people who abandoned their property to run for their lives, they came back to look for this property, say, oh no, they're now abandoned property, people are now living in it. I built it, you knew when I was... No, it's abandoned property, government policy. Okay, so now I was working at university, let's say. I've gone back, I'm the lecturer. So my friend, you returned, we're glad you survived the war. What about my job? No. I think you have to be level whatever, because your colleague are now ahead of you. You can put up with that. This is a job, but some didn't have a job to go back to. Okay, so what do we do now? We haven't got any job, so well, why don't we start importing things like second-hand clothing? No, that's banned. You're not allowed to bring that. What about stockfish? So everything the Igbo tried, or the people of Biafran origin tried to rebuild themselves, Nigeria blocked. Okay, how about in the Biafra land itself? So they don't have to come back into Nigeria. Why not rebuild the place? Their roads, their schools, their hospitals. There are people queuing outside after the war to try and help rebuild the place. And you say, no, we're Nigerians. This is our problem, internal problem. We can solve this. We don't want any help, says the head of state. So in other words, even people outside who were trying to come in and help, you say, no, you can't use it. Even the airport that was bringing food in at night, you closed it and moved it all the way to Lagos to go on the land, by land. So more people died after the war. So the Igbo's experience, and talking about Pan-Africanism, is such that we have learned a personal bitter lesson. And there's this saying in Igbo land that Onyasa says the last long way. In other words, a person who's rejected by others cannot reject himself. With that knowledge, they first of all need to secure their self-determination as per UN guarantee and say, right, here's our country. We can now stabilize it, because the reason driving the whole thing is security. We are better at protecting ourselves than trusting our security to others, because they have failed us all along. So, and that's really the issue.
As I said last strong as well, is that there's 3 sides to a coin,
Of course.
There's a head.
And 2 sides to an egg. The inside and the outside of the egg.
So we say there's a head, the tail, and around the hedges,
That's right.
Right, so I'm sure people from the north,
yes,
and I'm sure people from Yoruba land or
The West.
will have their own point of view.
Absolutely.
in this situation. And as I said, I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but I will mention it today, is that if the CIA, who don't mean black people no good, is predicting or saying that Nigeria would be divided into 4 separate countries by 2015, it means that that was a plan that they want to put into effect. And whatever the plans of our enemy cannot be our plans, so to speak.
Sure.
We're going to wonder why the enemy wants Nigeria to be divided. And if they want it to be divided, how can we keep it united?
Right. Can I just say, I think keeping Africa and making Africa united is extremely important. And you can only have unity in circumstances where there is no internal oppression. And that's a very important principle.
Justice.
So that's one of the things that's producing some terrible situations right now. We all of us are seeing on our WhatsApp stuff on Cameroon.
Yes.
And clearly something very wrong is happening inside of Cameroon. Clearly there is a section of that country that's being run by a government that doesn't have any concept of non-oppression and is clearly very actively oppressing one part of the country. Africa cannot be united on that basis. So that country, unless the AU, the UN, and whoever else, whatever the relevant structures are, help the government of Cameroon to understand that one of the things that cannot happen is that kind of oppression of part of the people of your state. Then those people have a right to get out of it. And there's quite likely to be another little civil war. It's going to be messy and bloody, but unless something happens now to stop what is happening, then, and then it's not the only example. In Ethiopia, right, everybody knows that one part of Ethiopia got out about 20, 30 years ago. And they remained at daggers drawn until recently, now seem to be getting back together. But what people don't know is that inside of Ethiopia, the Oroma people were subject to the most appalling inequities, maskillings, right? And it was going on until quite recently. Now, African countries cannot act in that way and hope to remain united. The people who are on the receiving end of that are going to stand up. It might take them a long time to organize, but once they organize themselves, they will conduct armed national liberation processes in exactly the way that Eritrea actually did within Ethiopia, and they will win long term.
Yeah.
So non-oppression and equity, proper division of spoils, of office, of all of that are absolutely essential conditions to the entities that end up making continental Africa being legitimate and surviving, the pressures. That's what the Igbo Nigeria thing is about. It's about on what conditions can African peoples, wrongly called tribes, stay together in juridical entities, in states, inside of what we hope will eventually be one judicial African entity, namely a united Africa. And that entity itself is going to have to act on the basis of non-oppression of the particular internal states and the particular internal peoples.
All right. We hear... Yes, Brother Professor.
I think one aspect needs to be looked at is why the North behave the way they do. Who are these people in the North and why they behave they do? That must be just to give some background to what the conflict is. Because, as the brother rightly said, they did not want decolonization. Why? That's the question.
If I may answer that, or try to help anyway. Then basically in Africa you have the Muslim Arab coming down from the north, Sahara Islam, and they were going to literally dip the Quran in the Atlantic Ocean. That's a euphemism to bring the conquering Islam into the part of the country, particularly in Biafra land, that weren't Islamized. If you look at the whole of West Africa, is the only part of West Africa that has not been Islamized. There was an ongoing jihad before the British arrived. Now, the jihad was Fulani driven. The Fulani are people outside Nigeria who came into Nigeria and conquered the northern tribe called the Hausas.
For those who don't know, jihad is a religious war, a war on a religious basis, like what the Christians had, which they call crusades. It's the Muslim equivalent of that.
Yes, and basically the Muslim says if you're not practicing Muslim, you are an infidel, you are an animist, you don't believe, so we're going to bring the proper religion to you, we impose it on you, you either die or believe in God, you have no choice. So, but at the back of that is also the slavery side of the thing. They come into a village, they conquered you, they took your people as slaves, and they chucked them to Arab. There are more slavery from the African land going up north than they actually went to the Atlantic.
And also east.
In the eastern part,
eastern
part of Africa, again, Muslim came and they raided and took people and castrated men. So there was less population in the eastern Africa than there is in the west. So we know that. So the mentality that the black people, the actual, if you like, African indigenous people, are looked down upon by the Arabs. So there's although when you look at them, they're both phenotypically, they look black, but there's this mentality that we're Arabs, we're therefore more superior. They had horsebacks and so they were fighting to make sure everybody became Islamic. But the British stepped in and said you should stop all this raiding of villages, and so they tried to have a chat about it. The British governor, the British army commander, wrote a letter to the Hausa guy, to the Fulani guy. He said, between us is only war, there's no discussion. So they were beaten by the British using the Gatling gun. You know, they had machine gun, and this way I have horseback. So they'd never seen anything like it. So they were wiped out. They were subdued, rather. And by subduing the Fulani, they who have subdued the indigenous Hausa people, the Fulani were also helped by, the British were also helped by the Hausa to beat the Fulani. Now, the most disturbing thing about the whole thing is because they have already established this these emirs, if I can use, little enclaves, when the British arrived. So it was easier for the government of Britain, to actually use the people who have conquered the houses to continue administering those places. Yeah, so it's a long story, but what you conquered people who conquered others. And then those people recognize that the British have conquered them, and therefore we want to be under them. They therefore caved in, and Britain recognized that, and when they were leaving Nigeria, they handed power back to them. Now, there's another sub-story to that. Because they caved in, the British, therefore, didn't fight them. They had natural allies, in the sense that, how do you want us to administer this? We're going to rule via you, indirectly. Okay? We're going to rule the whole vast empire in the north indirectly. So you're an emir, the British will tell you what to do for your people. Yeah? So therefore, they say, oh, I'm the emir, I prefer Islamic schools, not Western schools. So therefore, you dictated how fast your region developed. Whereas in the south, this wasn't the case. They didn't have emirs because they didn't have anybody telling them what to do. So you have a disparity between the north and the south. So the southern people, they grabbed the Western education, and they ran with it. And they went to the north to try and help develop the north, thinking that they're going to be one country. So this disparity meant that there are people in the north who are less, if you like, I would say civilized, they're less westernized, and therefore they say we are not ready for independence. Do you understand? So because if you say yes to independence, people from the south will now come to your villages and run their post offices and trains and so on. So there was that animosity. That is why they say they are not ready for independence. But the British then turned around and gave them the power, even though they didn't have the knowledge. So that caused the tension. But they didn't only do that, they made sure that every time you go into the vote for an election, you'll always have them winning, because they say we can only become independent when 50% of all the votes belong to us. So you already built in bias into the political setup in Nigeria. So as a result, the tension grew, and that led to all sorts of chaos. People said, we're not going to be under you forever. We've got to have a system which works for us.
Yeah. Could I just say that you've got to the numbers matter, and that's part of the answer. What you say is very important, but another little part of the answer, not so little, is that numbers issue. Because what the Northerners now say, well, they say a number of things. One is that we're Islamic and we have to defend and advance Islam. But they also say we are numerically the majority and have rights to rule based on our numbers. The numbers thing was always disputed in Nigeria, and it's actually still disputed at the time of independence and after that, leading up to the Civil War. Nobody in the South actually believed the numbers that the Northerners were claiming. I don't know if that problem has been solved.
Using image satellite imaging, you can work out where the density of people are. So they know in the Nile Valley there are more population density. They are greater in the Biafran land. The north is a vast land.
Absolutely.
The concentration is not as much. You also say to yourself, of the whole of West Africa, it only appears that the northern part in Nigeria has more population than the southern part, because people live nearer where the coast is. You follow? They have more access to the sea. So what we're really saying is that the census that was done after the first Nigeria became independent was suspect. And because it was suspect...
Are the censuses still suspect? Because I remember, again, from both from my history and from my memory, is that people were saying the censuses aren't properly conducted. They're not allowing us to go into their homes to count. They're just telling us that we have so many people inside of those places that the census people can't go and count.
That's right.
So the numbers from the north was what the heads of those households were saying they had. And nobody believed it.
Exactly.
I don't know if that problem has been solved.
So
has it?
That problem hasn't been solved.
Yeah.
There's still a suspicion that so in other words, if you're really going to run a country, you don't know how many people, what your population is.
Yeah.
You don't know who's where. So those are part of the issues, but they're deliberately kept down. And when you see Nigeria voting, they go to polls. You see children voting. You say, well, hang on, are they supposed to be voting? But you can't dispute it because it's the numbers they've been allotted. And the West will say, oh, this particular election is the fairest and freer, but it didn't tell you how it was before. So each time they try and justify things what is you can't justify. It's an electoral fraud because you have not got the right population going to the polls, and yet you declare that they won. So Nigeria has always had that problem. But you can't really, you need an international people to go in and count these things properly for people to stop being suspicious.
All right, Reverend Brother on the line. Brother Addy. Brother Addy. Come down, Brother Addy. Your time's up. Brother Addy.
Are you doing, Kwame? You okay?
I am wonderful. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. Very good.
What would you like to say?
Yeah, I want to mention about Eritrea and I think they dispute. I think it was partly due to the Ogaden. That's what just a fight over the stretch of desert, for the control. So that, of course, that's the gateway to the Indian Ocean. And so one of the reasons why I believe that the problem, they seem to have sorted the problem out between them now. The reasons over the last few weeks. And that's regarding Nigeria, Kwame. I don't think, there's a lot I could say because I did, made a few statements last week, when the gentleman you got there, he was with you, And that's regarding their population. I mean, it's far from true. I certainly don't believe it. I think it's the least, like the gentleman, there's the most densely populated part of Nigeria because if you look at northern Nigeria, I mean, it's 70%, desert. 70% desert. I mean, if you cannot, so how could they be the majority? It's impossible. It's totally impossible.
There's some significant cities and towns in the north. It's not all desert, but it's basically much of it is desert, and it's difficult to see how those numbers are legitimately generated. And the south of Nigeria has never been convinced of the census figures from the north.
Yeah, and you mentioned Cameroon. I mean, the Cameroon, the long time was actually part of Biafra.
It's true.
It borders onto the eastern part of the border onto the eastern part. Once you cross river from River State, you're in Cameroon.
Yes,
it was part of it was part of the Igbo land. It was part of Biafra.
Yes. Well, that's what I mean about the artificiality of the carve up of Africa that happened in the period after 1885, 84, 85, and some real problems flow from that.
Yes.
Yeah. But all these things, I mean, like you said, I mean, like this mentioned last week, all these things will visit eventually. It will do. It's a case of what goes around comes around. Because I mean, when there have been injustice done, I mean, the consent of the indigenous people who live in places, things, there's always a repetition of history. History does, in fact, repeat itself. Will do if it must do, because I mean, we the Yorubas, I mean, just say that we live in the coast. I mean, the people are more.
Yes.
I mean, obviously the people are more. I mean, look at Lagos, for example. Lagos is half of the population of London.
Yes.
Just one city.
Yeah.
Half of the population of, not London, half the population of England. Or Britain, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, the general point is made, and the general point is that there is an issue about the claim made by the northern part of Nigeria, which happens to be overwhelmingly Muslim, that they have a certain population which starts off on the basis of suspect censuses in the late 50s and 60s, start off on the basis of suspect census, and the censuses haven't stopped being suspect. There are issues about the size of that population, the claim made on behalf of that to rights to rule, to head everything in Nigeria. There's something wrong.
Of course. And then you mentioned, the school, the madrasa. When the Arab, like the gentlemen, they said that when they brought the Quran, they not only established madrasa, what is known as Islamic school. Mm-hmm. Hence today, this is what is causing the Boko Haram and all this, even though I still strongly believe somebody in the north, one of the Babangida, I don't like to name, it could be current incumbent himself, Buhari, who is sympathetic towards their plight. So somebody is sealed in them, coupled with the ammunition, that's readily available along the Sahel route, along the caravan expedition route. It just made those problems there because it's totally, completely things is out of control. Mm-hmm. Because we readily couldn't get all of guns, and people could funding them in the north. It could be one of the emirs there. But I suspect the key players, Babangida, and the current incumbent, who I believe should not be given a second back, because he was doing this job in the early 80s. Yeah. And he's allowed to come back there. And what do Nigerian people expect? I personally don't expect nothing.
Well, I don't think you can stop somebody standing if the Constitution doesn't disbar them. So the problem becomes the Constitution and the nature of the Nigerian state. That's the problem.
Of course.
Okay, Brother Adi.
Yes.
What is the current president doing about corruption in Nigeria?
Well, I understand that he set up a commission, but you see, brother, you could set up a commission. It's really in depth into our society. How did he get there? He was introduced to us by Europeans, and we're so gullible, we know to follow Europeans. Everywhere in Africa was peaceful. Happy people were harmonious. People were united. People were not as divided as they are today. Until they came, like I mentioned to you last week, before the European came, or the so-called the British, there was electricity, there was everything, in southwestern part of Nigeria. There was all that. As soon as they came, there's only 30% of life in the whole country, So these are the problem. Corruption, I believe, was brought into Africa.
Can I ask you a question about that? Because I didn't understand your point about electricity being there before the Europeans. Are you saying that there's an indigenous mode of generating electricity that predated, say, the British rule, or are you saying that electricity came early, adopted from, say, London to the parts of Nigeria you're talking about? I didn't quite understand that point of view.
No.
Yeah.
No. Electricity was actually generated. Electricity way before British people came there.
Yeah.
Because don't forget, the coast, like the gentleman mentioned, coast. People that will live in coast are advantageous. Look at that. Today, people use solar, what they call it, the wind turbines, solar panels.
Yeah.
So that you can take advantage of this. People have always been taking advantage of having the coastal, the element of the coastal, where you can get electricity. Not only supplies you with your food, your fish, and everything else.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I'm not aware of that as part of our West African history, but I'm willing to look that up and to hear from you further on it.
Okay.
I think you have to look into the pyramids where the ancient Africans actually were able to generate electricity, and the Volta from France, when they went there, all the Renaissance about all the things they learned from the hieroglyphics. Mm-hmm. But so that's another moot point. The issue we're really facing, Andy, thanks for calling in, is what do we do now? Because as Brother Kwame was asking, how do we, as looking as black people throughout the world, instinctively or intuitively, you want the whole Africa to be one.
Mm-hmm. As African people throughout the world,
Indeed. And our brother Cecil pointed out that for us to be united, it's like you want us to be in one family. Great. But if each time I come into that family, I get slapped, I get my leg broken, I get toe capped or whatever, and or kneecapped even. You say I must stay in that so that we have a big family. the answer is going to be variably, one day I'm going to slap you back to stop you slapping me. That is really at the basic line where we are, isn't it? So, because of what has happened, if you really look at the history of the Biafrans, they have got to the stage where they're giving Nigeria ample 50 years after the war, let's say, okay, not after the war, 50 years from the time of their being killed to now, plus. They haven't, the killing is still ongoing. Nigeria is still no more stable than when, during the colonization. So, what do we do going forward? Do we leave things as they are? Or do we stabilize it, allowing justice to reign, as Brother Cecil was saying? If you allow everybody to be treated as a human being, equal before the law, and therefore not being bullied or killed, intimidated, imprisoned, and so on, then you are going to have a country. But because this is not happening, there might be a need for peace to reign, for people to pull apart. This is actually what a Buri agreement was about. You stay apart, slightly move apart, that's the confederacy, rather than come together and in the collision perish. That was the term we used in Aburi. So the idea was for people to stay slightly apart and see how they manage their own area of command, so that if it's stabilized, then you can come back together. But if it's not stabilized, what's the point carrying on shedding innocent blood? What has a child in somebody's womb got to do with your politics? You kill the mother, kill the child, and bring the child out and kill. What is that? How's that helping to keep Africa united? That's really the issue.
Brother Adi, you want to comment on that?
For example, now, just like what you said, that a marriage, between a man and a woman that's not working. Listen, you have to dissolve it. Eventually, it will be dissolved. That's just a typical example of what I'm saying. Like he said that. It's got to be back. It's got to be the federal system, because then everybody will control. It doesn't stop us. Mr. Gosman said that it doesn't stop us united by having separate people in Africa like it was before, which was harmonious and peaceful.
But it's what you do with the children of that marriage, brother Adi. That's the important thing. You can't just leave the children out in the cold. Yeah. Anyway, all right, brother Pepikai want to ask another question. I think I'll make a comment.
Yeah, it is a comment really. Whenever we have a problem, we have to go to the root cause before we can solve the problem. My grandfather asked the question, where do you want from? Where's it coming from? So I'm very glad you give that little insight as to who these Northerners are. And I also wanted to say a little bit about who the Igbos are.
Okay.
We come to that. I consider myself an Igbo man, although born in Jamaica. And the reason for that is that Sister Afian was born in Nigeria. Look at me, I say, you're Igbo. But interesting thing, when I was growing up in Jamaica, I was called Redibo because of my complexion. And I was talking to a brother, and he said, no. They wasn't insulting you. In Igbo land, they recognize two colors. The very dark one and the light one. The light one is red, the two color, red Igbo. And I find that interesting.
That is in the literature.
Yeah. And my little historical knowledge of Jamaica, perhaps no far greater than I do. The Igbo people was part of that forced, I don't want to call it migration, because migration by choice.
Kidnapping.
Yes, about people being there. Now, I really wanted to say a little bit about the Igbos, because from what I know, the Igbos are looked upon as the Jews of Africa. They're very thrifty people. They get things done, very efficient, very creative. And in Nigeria, the constitution states only two religions is recognized by the state, Islam and Christianity. Now how mad can you be for the two religions that has been the driver to your destruction? You put them up on the pinnacle, and your own religious philosophy is nowhere.
Yes.
So we're mad, crazy, stupid idiots.
Yes.
And to top it all, the Boko Haram is in the north killing their own people.
Yes.
Especially more than the killing is Muslim as well, saying that they're not Muslim enough.
Yes.
And the Christian is competing by having a big Jesus Christ statue in Ebola.
Of course.
You know?
Yes.
How do you see that point of view, brother?
Yeah. Just to respond to Brother Pepperkai on Igbo identification in the diaspora.
Yeah.
What he was saying about Redibo, it's in the technical literature from the Caribbean, and he's right. He's right about that.
Yes.
But I wondered whether you had any comment on what else he was saying.
I know about the concept of Red Igbo. My fear for it is that because they were of lighter complexion, the people who are of darker complexion were victimized more. So I'm not glorifying the fact you're Red Igbo or dark Igbo. In Igbo land, there's a range of complexion. It can be very, very dark to very, very light. And it's recognized. Nobody in Igbo land goes and say, oh, you're Red Igbo. It's a concept, again, the Europeans brought. Because the closer you are, in inverted comma, to a white person, the more you're supposed to be more favored. And that's where I think the Red Igbo thing should be taken in the context.
Right. So, and was that complexion situation there before the Europeans and the Arabs came?
No.
So it's after the Europeans Arabs
when
came.
they grabbed you as a slave or it kidnapped you, they wouldn't say whether you were lighter or darker.
No. I'm saying the complexion thing.
Yes.
From light to
Yeah.
darker from...
It's just a genetic variation.
Yeah, but that was there before the white man, before Arab came.
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, the people mistaken and think, maybe an Arab, a white person impregnated a black person and they became lighter.
Yeah.
Rubbish.
Not true.
Up till now, you can still see a genetic variation in skin pigmentation.
Yes. And
from one
throughout Africa.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. We've got another call on the line. 2973. Good morning. What would you like to input? I would like to input.
Yeah, good morning, Kwame.
Good morning, brother Biafra. What's your first name again?
Ogugo Biafra.
You say too fast, enough.
Ogugua.
Ogigo.
Yes, Ogugua.
Ogugwa.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't have much to say because the justice understand the history very well. I do. I was born after the war, but Biafra is a spirit, and immediately once you hear the name, it gets into you. So Nigeria cannot wipe it away from us. Neither will British wipe it away from us. So anybody who is thinking about telling Biafra to keep calm and wait more, we just want to destroy Africa, because the way we are thinking now. We want to, it's like when people are not listening, we want to get everything destroyed so that they will understand how we feel. But we're not talking about destruction now. Can I thank you, Kwame, especially you and Cecil, who tried to drive this debate on? I thank you people. I thank Galaxy Radio, because when I listen to other radio stations, they don't really talk about that. And ever since Buhari came to power, more than 20,000 people have died in Nigeria. More than 20,000. I'm telling you the truth. You understand? You know why we are talking like me, a Biafran, is because, not that they have killed my brother or they have killed my sister, but we're supposed to preserve life. Black people have to preserve, because end of the day, it's coming down to hit black people. Fulani people are not black. They don't want to be black. They just want to represent Islam ideology. That's my message. We need to keep these people by one side. They are listening, but they cannot call. Why they cannot call is because, everything we say here is truth. But when you give it to them to do, give them government to run, they run Haba. What they call Habadia. Habadia system of government is what they run. People are Islam, we understand it. So can I thank you all for taking interest in this matter, and we will be glad for you people to help us spread the message that we said we need the referendum to say whether we will continue to live with you or not. But when we are calling for war. But before I cut off, Mr. Justice, please, this is my number. as you know the history, I would like you to push harder more, going to London conversation at LBC to let them know what we are going after. We want peace. They want everybody to live side by side with each other. You talk about the history, but I'm telling you, I that run business, we see hell. We see hell from the hand of Nigerian government and from the hand of Europeans. And now China is taking their foot on our head. But when Biafra comes, you see this visa will be a thing of the past because they will ask us to come. They will beg us to come. I cut off from here. Thank you.
You don't go out just yet. Thank you for calling in. You're very good. You just pointed something about the business, right? Now, you're a Nigerian, you're, say, a Biafran extract. The jobs are not preserved for some people who feel they're running the country. You do a business to try and survive. For example, you import, export. But it's like in UK. You have London, you have Southampton, you have Glasgow, you have all these are ports where you can dock and offload your goods. In Nigeria, the government somehow pick one port, Lagos, and it's congested. Everything had to go through one port. Even though in the Biafra land you have Calabar, you have Port Harcourt, you have Sapele, you have Warri, all sorts of places closer to the south. Not only that, they're trying to have a dry dock right in the center of the country. Yeah, a dry dock being designed in the center of the country. So you have to travel all the way to the center, it's in the north, to go and collect your goods when you live at the coastal part. That destroys your business. So he's talking from his own experience why he wants Biafra to come, because this is not helping him to develop as a human being. He's got his generation to come, but the issues are such that you don't want this part of the country to develop, and you're strangling the whole country by putting in place economic policies that doesn't help Africa as a whole. Thanks, Toju.
Yeah, in fact, I'm sorry I've got to go. Because I would love to stay for the duration of this program. But two things I want to mention. One, I'm in no way glorifying this Ready Boy issue, which is an issue of identity.
Yes.
And secondly, when Buhari came to power, I was not one of them jumping up and clapping. As far as I'm concerned, he's an Islamist, and it's good, no good for Nigeria and no good for Africa. When I think before he was actually the president, he come knocking at number 10 on his own. Must have got into a cab and landed. And camera was kicking him out. What are you doing here? The guy is so stupid. Was going for instruction. It was so shameful. Nigeria, the most powerful state. This fool went and now down the street. Was invited. Going to be instructed. And just back at the picture. And just kicking him out. Get out.
Send me that.
So disgraceful.
Did you know about that?
No.
The mentality.
Yes. But the interesting thing is that although you and I know there are other better qualified, if I can use the term, who can, if they really want Nigeria to be united for the sake of black people throughout the world, you could have picked other people. But there are those from the outside who will pick him to make sure that particular part of the country is destroyed. That's like you're backing mediocrity. You're backing people who can't do the job. And that's really what the African, neo-colonialism is about. You pick those who will not run the country.
For the
benefit of Africans.
But for them.
Absolutely. Yes. Because those independent, those Pan-Africanists, your Nkrumah and all those, they were all locked up, weren't they? To start with. Because they knew their potential. Nelson Mandela, you keep them in prison until they can't do as much as they can for the people.
And finally, with all my love for Nkrumah, and with all my love for his effort to unite Africa, his fundamental mistake was on race. Because when he went and opened arms to the Arabs to join, on what basis? The invaders. You don't tell invaders you can stay.
I know.
On what condition? whose language, what culture would drive this union.
Yes, that's true.
And that one in Nkrumah was weak on his knees.
Well, he may be seen that way, but I think his intentions are honourable.
Oh, yeah.
But as you look into it more detail, you realise unity comes in stages, isn't it? You can't force everybody to be united when they're not ready. So you've got to go at your own pace. But there's going to be a standard bearer. There's going to be some people who are motivated to think Africa first, isn't it? And if you think in Africa first, you have a state that was able to look after its own people, then it becomes easier for it to then replicate it throughout the whole Africa. It's like the tiger economy, isn't it, in Asia? All you need is one of them to excel, and others will copy it and also start excelling. But Africa will do that one day.
Well, my point is that for Africa to be united, we must know who's an African and who's not.
Okay.
And we can't have non-Africans on the table and accept them as African when they're the very people who came in to destroy. That's my point.
So Africa is not somebody who looks like African. Africa is not someone who's...
Sorry, just before you answer that question, we've got a call on the line, 3955. 3955.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. Ekaro.
Ekaro is good night.
Hey, good night. Is it Oda? What is it? Which one is it?
Which one? It depends on his tribe. Depends on his language.
Yoruba. I don't know.
Which language is he speaking?
I don't know. Where are you from, my brother?
I'm from Biafra land. I'm from Bakassi Island.
Okay.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So how do I greet you?
They're Biafran.
How do I greet him?
It depends on the language you speak. We're not speaking, but ask him his language.
What language you speak, my brother?
I speak Igbo and I speak Kalabari.
Okay.
Okay, so how do I greet you this morning?
Kedu?
Kedu?
Yes, Kedu all the money.
He's all right. Kedu is high.
All right.
It was just a friend of mine told me about Galaxy radio station, Galaxy radio, and I just tuned in. I heard all you were saying about the faction called Nigeria, and I'm a victim of that contraction because my Bakassi Island now is being contested. We have gendarmes occupying our island. This island was given to the Cameroon to block for. We were part and parcel of Biafra land. We are actually the people with the Bath of Biafra, which they call the Bath of Bonina or the Gulf of Guinea. And during the war Gowon, Yakubu Gowon gave our island to the Cameroonians to manage so that the Biafrans cannot bring in food or any other thing from there. So after the war 1983, Shagari went and took over the island back to Nigeria. And from there, the Cameroonians and the French began to contest the place, and they discovered oil in my place. And since then, we have been subjected to perpetual forgery, killing, raping, assassination, name it, kidnappings. Many of us have left the country, left the island. Right now, we are stateless people because we are not welcome in Nigeria. We are not welcome in Cameroon. We don't speak French. And many of us go to school in Nigeria. But up to today, many of us that left that island and went to Calabar are still internally displaced people. But my question is, the Scottish people have lived the United Kingdom for 300 years. Today, they are fighting to go their way. And the people of Northern Ireland, the same thing. And people of Wales, everybody have their own currency. This Nigeria is absolutely a farmland of the British government. Nigeria is a business center for British government. Nigeria has no independence because if they have independence, they should not be singing their national anthem in English. No nation sing their national anthem in the language of their colonial master and claim to be independent. What Nigeria has is extension of the Islamic Caliphate because the green, white, green is a Muslim Sunni color. Any nation that fought war, shed blood, is supposed to have red and black or some form in their flag. But you can see it's not in Nigeria. After losing 6 million Biafrans from war and starvation, we are calling for referendum for our people. The same right that was accorded to the British people by European Union must be accorded to Biafrans. The same right that was accorded to the Scottish people must be accorded to Biafrans. Because when this amalgamation came, they did not consult any of our people. They cut off the head of 11 kings in Biafra land, and their heads are still in United Kingdom. For Biafrans, 1910, they started this. In 1914, they succeeded in forcing Biafrans to become Nigeria. 1910, Biafrans is still a land of Biafra, governed by our people. They came there to buy palm nuts, from there to palm kernel. From palm kernel, one day they came with their guns and bullets and soldiers, and this is a British territory, and everybody that refused it was murdered and destroyed. Up to today, it's still run as a British business center, where 300 million barrels of colonial tax from our land. Pollution has destroyed our farms, our road, our pond. We are fishing people, we are riverine people, we fish, we survive through the water, through the sea, but all our creeks, all our mangroves, our people are suffering from kidney diseases, our people are suffering from acid rain, our people are suffering from pollution of the highest order. I tell you, they expel people like us from that land because we speak out. From 1991, I started talking about cleaning the place because our sand field where we play football, we cannot even play football because crude oil, it's polluted the whole place. We can't swim no more. My question is, what is the whole black community of United Kingdom waiting for? They are killing us thousands and thousands every day in our land. This is the time all black nations in the whole world, especially people in diaspora who have the freedom of speech in the land of their abode, to wake up and come together to say Biafrans must be given the right for referendum, because if not so, this generation of Biafrans will do it by all means necessary, and every option is on the table, and we will give them 20 million refugees in United Kingdom. We want referendum. It's our birthright. It's under the UN Charter, freedom and choice of self-determination. We are not seeking for any other thing. If they call our self-determination goal and referendum war, so be it.
All right.
Because one man's freedom is another man's trouble.
I'm not too sure that was a question or whether it was a statement, but Brother Justice wanna come back to you.
What's your name there?
My name is Malak Biafran.
Malak Biafran. You're welcome. Okay, you touched the most important point, I think, so far. Bakassi, most people would not appreciate what's gone on. Bakassi currently is supposed to be annexed to Cameroon. The story about Cameroon, as the way it sounds, is actually German sounding, isn't it? The Germans were the ones who colonized Cameroon. But after the First World War, the Germans were asked to hand off all the territories they had, and the British and the French were supposed to administer it on their behalf. So the Cameroon was being looked after by France. But there was a corner of Cameroon which is also part of Nigeria.
Yes.
In fact, the NCNC was part of National Council for Nigerian Citizens and the Cameroon. So it's actually part of Nigeria, this Cameroon part, the southern part. Now, the mess that is going on now, most of us have seen the clips where a child carried in the piggy bag by mom being shot by the military. So the Cameroon story was during the Biafra-Nigerian War, these Kwashoko belly swollen children we saw was as a result of a deal that Nigeria made with Cameroon. Nigeria was fighting for territorial integrity. Nobody must dismember Nigeria, because Biafra forming would mean it's no longer part of Nigeria, but they want territorial integrity. Meanwhile, they carved out part of this Biafra and handed it over to Cameroon. So the territorial integrity which we are trying to preserve is a total nonsense, a hogwash. So Bakassi was part of Biafra, which was handed over to Cameroon, so that Cameroon would agree to seal the border, which is the only land border between Nigeria and Biafra, which Biafra actually had at that time. So by sealing off that land and blockading the sea coast means that the only way food can get into Biafra is through the air.
Yeah.
So that is what actually exacerbated the Biafran tragedy. Because if there was a land border, people could have moved across to Cameroon and waited for the war to end. But Nigeria pinched part of the Biafra land, handed it over to Cameroon, and therefore making a nonsense of their territorial integrity, because they have destroyed the so-called territorial integrity of Nigeria. And now we're therefore saying if we want a referendum, we want referendum to determine the emergence of Biafra. Okay, so Nigeria can't turn around and say, well, that would be breaking the Nigerian territorial integrity, because it's already been broken back in 1967. Okay, so you're right to point out the Bekasi, and as I mentioned last week, if we come to cleaning the place you used to play, which is now polluted by oil, nobody can clean your house better than yourself. So when Biafra comes, following the referendum, we'll be able to clean all those mess they made. But Bekasi does belong to Biafra, because the whole of the southern Cameroon, after a nation map, is actually part of Biafra. So no question about that. But we'll take that one step at a time. Thank you for your call.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
We're out of callers.
Huh?
We're out of callers.
Well, it's not a question of out of callers. It's a question of the next person need to ring in now, you know?
Yeah.
And hang on. Don't wait until 10 to and 5 to 1. You're going to start ringing, because I won't be answering the phone. So you better ring now and put your points across.
Yes. I just wondered, my brother Justice, Boko Haram.
Yes.
So something extraordinary is happening with Islam, isn't it?
Yes.
Where it feels itself entitled to extend itself by
Conquest.
No, they always felt that, but barbarism.
Yes.
And you get it with Boko Haram.
Yes.
That there's nothing civilized or humane or human about Boko Haram. It's pure terrorism.
Indeed.
And you got that also with Islamic State in Syria and Iraq.
Yes.
And if they had just remembered to be even minimally civilized, the West wouldn't have been able to destroy them in those two countries. It's precisely because they were barbarically on the world stage,
Yes.
decapitating people in front of Western cameras.
Yes.
If you do that, the West will tell their people, these are barbarians and we have to get them down. And they did it, and the West were able to tell their people, these are barbarians and we have to take them down, and proceed to do so. So they sold their own cause because of the barbarism of their methods. I just don't understand them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Not that I necessarily think they are entitled to succeed, but their methods are... I mean, I think they're unheard of, even for the worst of Islam.
Yes. Yeah.
But can I come in on there?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, how much is Boko Haram working for the progress of Nigeria and for Islam, or how much is what was in Islamic State working for the progress of Islam? Yeah. The reason I'm asking that question is that if we know the way the CIA and the FBI and the British Secret Services work and the French Secret Service work, they infiltrate many different groups and put those kind of henchmen within those groups to carry out these barbaric acts.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just putting the thing out there. You know?
No, but you have an important point. In the West does that. In Israel actually set up the group that runs the Gaza Strip at the moment. What's their name? Hamas. Israel actually set up Hamas, you know. Right?
You mean Hamas they don't like?
No, but they set them up in the first place to undermine the PLO. That's almost universally acknowledged. When the Soviet Union went into Afghanistan, declared to be an invasion. It really wasn't any invasion. And the West, that man,
Al-Qaeda.
Al-Qaeda, wasn't it?
Bin Laden.
Bin Laden was their man.
Yeah.
He was used
CIA.
in it. Yeah, they set him up, right? He was a rich guy from Saudi Arabia, who and he did their work, and then decided that he didn't just want to do their work; he wanted to do some of his work, and we know the rest. We know the rest of that history. So some of what is happening in the Sahel, including a little bit further south in northern Nigeria, is probably the nasty work of Western forces. But I didn't hear anybody in Islamic State saying, for example, that these public executions where how can you be so foolish as to execute Western journalists on television? Right? The Western governments are not going to have any trouble coming and bombing you. If you're not doing that, what is going to be their justification for coming and bombing you? They can't just say, we don't like these Islamic people, they've taken over this part of the country, we're going to go overthrow them. They have to have a case. And the case, right, in this instance, is round the barbarism of the entity involved. So it's kind of problematic. But staying with Nigeria, I mean, who are these people in that have constituted Boko Haram, and who in Nigeria is distancing themselves from them,
and who is funding them,
and who is funding them? There are all of these issues that matter, and I've got a book on my shelf on it's supposed to be Boko Haram. I haven't read it yet, so I don't even know what the argument there is. But it's very strange entity.
Okay. Well, what I know to share with you so far, is that the North, let's get back to the North again, Islamic core North. There are Christians in the North who are now under severe trauma. They're being killed.
Yes.
So the issue now is the North felt they must be in power to rule Nigeria. Yes. That is their, if you like, their mandate
their birthright.
For independence. Their birthright, born to rule. All this mentality. So because if when Jonathan accidentally became, Jonathan's from the south, when he became the president, because he was vice president, the northern president died. So he filled in the post of the vice, then went on to win an election. So that means the power left the North. Now the North will say to you, that's all we're in Nigeria to do, to be in charge. So the Muslim, if you like, the core North, decided that we've got to somehow get the power back. And it was at that time that the Boko Haram was really becoming, speedy, if you like, becoming more notorious. There had been some Islamic fundamentalist agitation even before that. But when Boko Haram then appeared on the scene, the idea was to destabilize the southern-led president. So much so that the current incumbent president said an attack on Boko Haram is an attack on the North. That's his own exact quotation, understanding.
He said that?
Buhari said that. An attack on Boko Haram is an attack on the North. So they are our misguided brothers. And since he came into power, he's been releasing them, putting them back into Nigerian army. So there's a sort of a softly approach. Whereas people who are agitating in the southern part or southeastern part, which are Biafrans, the IPOB, are being killed, without carrying any weapons, just for agitating to say we had enough. Let's have some form of referendum to leave. So the Boko Haram is the way I'm looking at it personally. This doesn't belong to anybody. It's like in the developing country, and you mentioned CIA and all the things, Afghanistan. So if you look at the whole thing, it's like Nigeria has been set up like a colonial country. And I call it a hematophagic monster. That's a
lovely word.
Bloodsucker, Hem just blood, phage just eating.
All right, the doctor is easy for you.
So it's a blood, if you're Greek here, a blood-sucking monster created by the colonial masters,
Yes.
and the purpose is to decrease the population
Yes.
of if you like, indigenous Africans.
Yes.
While this is happening, they're carting away all your goods, isn't it?
Yes.
Your God-given resources.
Yes.
And as they're carting that away, they make sure you will never ever, as a people, develop your true potential on the world stage. And that's what the whole violence is about.
Yes.
The masquerade under Islam or whatever, you have a group of people whose intent is to make sure that you never rear your where they getting the weapons from. If they say Boko Haram, it's book is forbidden, haram is forbidden, Boko Haram, their book is forbidden, meaning Western education is not permitted. But it's the Western education that gives you your cell phone. It's the Western education that gives you a bullet, your AK, whatever they use, all their weapons,
and the clothes they wear.
and they close the wear. So if they're forbidden, why are you utilizing the benefits of the Western education to destroy your own people?
Yeah.
So
Just one, and it's a genuine question. If Boko Haram have in effect won with the coming back to office of Buhari,
Yes.
what are those current killings about which are still happening in the
Indeed.
north of Nigeria?
So you have a Boko Haram, which everybody know have been labeled as terrorists.
Yes.
Yeah. And it took a while for Nigeria for the world to convince the Americans and so on that these guys are terrorists. Then they splintered off to what they call the Hausa herdsmen, the Fulani herdsmen. Now these ones, they're going around village to village, burning the houses,
Yes.
chasing people, killing.
Yes.
The one you saw in Cameroon is really child's play. I'm
Yes.
sorry to use the term.
Yeah.
Compared to what is happening in
the
the
north of
mid-belt of Nigeria, where they're killing the Christians,
Yes.
chasing them out of their homes,
Yeah.
burning them.
Yeah.
So they're making them internally displaced,
Yeah.
making them refugees.
But some of that needn't be about Christianity. It may be because the same thing in a way was happening in Sudan,
Yes.
where they call themselves the Janjaweed,
Yeah.
and what the Islamist militia
Yes.
attacking Islamic people
That's right.
because they were settlers,
Yes.
and these people were horsemen
Yes.
and herdsmen,
Yes.
and wanting to move the settled
Yes.
people out of
Yes.
the way.
Yes.
So some of that isn't necessarily about religion, because they
Correct.
do it to Islamic settlers
Correct.
as well.
But it so
Yeah.
happens that the majority of those being
Yeah.
killed in the mid-belt
Yes,
are Christians.
I'm not denying that. I'm
We
just
can- we
saying.
can-
Yeah,
we can- we can-
all right,
we
yeah.
can't ignore that
Yeah,
fact.
yeah, okay.
So because majority are Christians, their villages are being sacked, meaning be destroyed, burnt, and so on. And then they are people who are doing it then have another group moving into those places
yes.
to start reaping the harvest.
Yes.
Yes. Taking the harvest of the crop they've grown, and they're being this is being distorted as farmer herdsman clash.
Yes.
But even though there are no herds at the time of
Being
the clash,
moved, yeah.
and there's no clash. It's asymmetric in the sense that you can't be having a clash if you got AK-45
Yeah, and the
or
people
47
unarmed
you can't call that a
farmers.
clash.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a murder.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
basically a military incursion and wiping you out. So it's been distorted. The message has been distorted in the West and in
Yes.
the press that it's a
So
clash.
who are they? Are they offshoots
We
of
think there's an
Boko Haram?
offshoot. We think they're an offshoot of Boko Haram. But Buhari went to White House and said, "Oh, they are from Libya." Okay, if they're from Libya, and you're outside Nigeria,
They got far south if they're from Libya.
so the first border you cross, isn't
yeah,
it? Would be placed at Sokoto, Katsina,
exactly, yeah.
Buhari's own town.
Yes.
Nothing happens to them.
Yeah.
They come right in the middle of Nigeria.
And even between
In between.
what you're calling Buhari's town,
Yes.
there's a whole heap of Africa that they have to come across before they get
Beforehand.
to the central
Yeah.
belt of
Yeah.
Nigeria.
In the meantime, the military know they're coming.
Yes.
The military know they've chased these people out.
Yes.
The military know they're still camped where they've destroyed people.
Yes.
And nothing happens.
done.
Yeah. So it's deliberate.
Yeah.
in that
On
sense.
on the other hand, and I'm not even sure it's on the other hand, but I'm just asking this because you read stuff and sometimes it doesn't make sense. So wait,
Just one second.
yes, okay, yeah.
9436. Are you on the line? 9436. No, okay.
Yeah. No, it's just that under Jonathan,
Yes.
for example, around about the time that the schoolgirls were kidnapped,
Yes.
around about
Boko
that
Haram.
time,
And
yes.
then
There was
Chibuike
yes.
girls.
There's much talk then about the Nigerian government being heavy-handed in its assaults on
Boko Haram.
Boko Haram
Yes.
and committing atrocities
Yes, yes.
allegedly against Boko Haram when
yes.
they weren't necessarily.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember a talk on that. The reason for that, because the Nigerian military commander then was of the southern part
Yes.
of the military. He's an Igbo person. And they were accusing him of committing war crimes.
Okay, so there's a
when he went hard against the Boko Haram.
Okay,
So that was the background to that. So I don't know if that helps. So they resigned him, and they're going to report him to ICC, but not to Boko Haram.
Okay.
So that's
So,
the issue.
was that pursued at all, or was
His name is Chibuike because they retired him.
Okay.
He's a general in the Nigerian army. Because it's of the Igbo extraction,
Yes.
he's the first one since the war finished
Yeah.
to become a general.
Yes.
So they decided that he was pursuing.
That's the way to get him out.
He was pursuing Boko Haram more even-handedly, where they were killing all the people trying to stem them. So they retired him early.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's what happened.
Thanks for that.
And Buhari came to power with the promise to deal with Boko Haram, and restore security.
Yes.
And
But he's compromised with them, and there's no security.
indeed.
Yeah.
Right, so tell me something. The last time I checked, in the Gambia,
Yes.
you have Nigerian, I think you have Ghanaian, and I think you have Senegalese troops in the Gambia.
Okay.
Right, so you have Nigerian troops in the Gambia to keep the peace
Yes.
in the Gambia.
Yes.
And yet still there's no peace in Nigeria.
Yes. Nigeria.
How do you explain that?
Indeed, Nigeria has always been Africa's darling when it comes to peacekeeping. They were there in the Congo, in the early 60s, and most of the actors currently were the finest troops the British ever trained of the Nigerian military that went to Congo to try and quell the the goings on there. And they've been to Sierra Leone. They helped to stabilize that part, Liberia,
And Ivory Coast.
And so they're quite good. Even in Darfur, Sudan, they've been as Africa's peacekeeping military. They're good at it, and we have to commend them. And this is what has been propping them up from the UN, US, UK point of view. They want a strong African country they can count on to go and quell all these riots and all the goings on.
Yeah.
But somehow, as you quite rightly alluded to, they seem not to be able to quell in
At
their
home,
own backyard what's going on. You have that. Nigerian military is very strong, but how can somebody, whether they're from Libya or not, walk across your border, chase away peasants, kill them, camp there, and the military don't do anything?
Yeah.
There's something strange going on.
One other question. You've been to Gambia recently, and the troops are still there. Wasn't
When I was there in February, March, they were there.
Yes. Well, wasn't that about a dispute over the presidency, and wasn't that settled with an election? What are those troops still there? Why is there?
I don't know. Keeping the peace, and it's well peaceful.
Yeah, exactly. So why haven't they gone home? Because the thing was settled by an election. I didn't hear that there was any fighting taking place between the opposing forces. The election settled it. There are people who who even think that the former incumbent will win next time round. And so on, but it's difficult to see why. Are they called ECOWAS? Why they're still there?
Yeah, ECOWAS troop is still there.
Yeah.
Maybe their presence there to concentrate the mind of those who won the election. the other people won't come back and displace them. So if it works and keeps the peace, then it should be.
No,
okay.
I just wonder why they're still there, because I don't hear any stories about lack of peace in right, and there wasn't even any big war before they went in.
No.
There was the former president did try to hold on to power, and I think that's what was being settled. But he did eventually accept the outcome of the election and did eventually leave office. And so I don't see what they're still doing there.
Nor do I.
Yeah, okay.
And peace need to be kept in Nigeria.
That's a bigger point. Yes.
You know? And other parts of Africa, because they mentioned the Cameroons where things need to start out there.
Yes. Well, you know that one of the things that happens is that the AU isn't very proactive. The oppressors in Cameroon are emphatically French. They're under the protection, therefore, of the French government, and the UN. You know, so we know that ECOWAS isn't acting, and we know that AU isn't acting. So the next country to produce action is France. It has to be approved by the Security Council, and they haven't made any move in the Security Council. So the murders in southern Cameroon continue.
Well, the Biafran experience with AU used to be OAU, the Organization of African Unity. They learned that they were more like Organization of Arab Unity.
Yes.
So that's what they labeled it because of their personal experience. United Nations is expecting AU to take the lead in quelling all the goings on in a place like Cameroon, for example. Say, step in and say, you guys should sort it out. But because they don't get involved, UN is like the second batch to get in. So as a result, we are suffering doubly.
Yes.
By the Africans being inactive.
Yes.
And the UN saying, well, it's exactly what they did in Biafra scenario. UTANT, who was the United Nations in charge, then says he's not getting involved because the AU will not get involved.
Actually, it depends on whether the West identifies an interest in the particular circumstances. So in Ivory Coast, they definitely had identified an interest with the opposition to Laurent Gbagbo, and were proactive in getting an intervention there. In Libya, their interest was in getting rid of Gaddafi, and they didn't want any AU involvement. The AU made no real moves to be involved. In fact, the then president of the AU, the then South African president Zuma, did a quick fly in to the capital of Libya and a quick fly out again, and said effectively, go ahead, use your no-fly zone to mash up Libya. And that is what the West wanted to do. It needed to destroy not just Gaddafi, but to destroy Libya, and proceeded to do so with all of the consequences to Africa and the world that we presently see.
AU to come in and say, give them the carte blanche. That's what happened there.
Yes.
So
well, they don't always.
Yes.
If they're wanting to take, I think it's Chapter 7 action, which means use of force under the UN Charter, they don't need anybody's permission. What they need is the authority of the UN, and if in Western interest is granted, unless China or Russia object in the sense of using their veto. And that's the difference between Syria and Libya. The Russians and the Chinese learned what the West will do when you give them the no-fly right. And so they never allowed that in Syria, which is why that civil war went on and is still going on. Because incidentally, speaking of the West setting up forces inside of Syria, people will know, if they look at the newspapers or read the news, that yesterday or the day before, some people called the White Helmets, who've just been defeated, allied to forces that have just been defeated in Syria. Interestingly, they have been allowed out through Israel.
Right.
If you are allowed out through Israel, it's because you are friends of Israel and the West. That is why they're coming out by that route, and they are destined for Canada, West Germany, which is supposed to be full, and what's the other country they're going to? The UK is supposed to be taking them. Now, what were these people doing in Syria? They're called White Helmets, not Islamic, which is a different color, not Red Cross, White Helmets. And their role was to tell lies about the Russians and the Syrian government, to invent the pretext for Western bombing. They are the ones who created all of those lies about chemical weapons being used, and you could actually see the lies being created as they pumped gas down children's mouth, and then the children foamed and going around washing down people who hadn't been affected at all by any kind of gas or whatever, and the Syrians and the Russians, having effectively called their bluff and defeating them, the West is now saying, all right, come home. They're nothing to do, they're not coming home to any place that they've been before, but they were willing to be agents of the West in Syria. And now that they've been defeated, they're coming out and the West is facilitating them. You know, you are our boys, we're gonna facilitate you. That's happening before our eyes.
It's interesting.
All right. Rashol Singh.
Blessed morning, my beloved brother, and blessed to the great professor. We call him professor in Jamaica because his knowledge is so incredible and it's so up to date that if you really listen to what Professor Gutsmo is saying, he's showing you how the 14th century war against the Moors, how it has transformed itself in the modern. We've had agents in Zimbabwe undermining Mugabe. We've had agents called militias all over Africa creating havoc. But these same people who call themselves the British civilized rulership.
Yes.
So my beloved press, I just love listening to you. As you know, we love for you to bring us up to date, because right now, as you can see, when we speak of that ancient treaty, the ancient treaty of Rome, remember the ancient treaty of Rome that empowered all those who signed it to be masters of the New World Order. So when we see the G8...
Sister Wynne.
Good afternoon.
You sit down there all the time, and when the man come on the phone, you start ringing.
I don't want you to attack our Sister Wynne. I want you to facilitate her to come through.
Sister Wynne? Now, I've only got one line. Yes?
Oh, sorry.
Right, so we can't start the call like we used to. Yeah, so it's only one line that operates at the moment. Yeah, but anyway, come through and make your point, please. Yeah?
It's just a quick question to ask if those white helmets will not themselves be used in our communities around the world. I'll leave it there. Bye-bye.
They could well be, my sister. Once you are associated with or agents of evil, you can be used in any place that you find yourself or that they put you. So yes, it's a good point. And we don't know where they will go. Some of them are coming here.
Then.
Yeah.
Okay then.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sister Wynne. Yeah. I mean, it's like in Jamaica. I mean, in Jamaica, we know what it's like to be destabilized.
Yes,
you know?
yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, and it's all done by our friend, big friend across the water.
They call you your backyard.
Yeah, well, we're in their backyard. Right? You know, we shouldn't think the way we think, you know, and do what we want to do. So anyway, so why is there such a big Jesus Christ in Igbo land?
Okay, well, it's about time we tackle this Muslim. We've been talking about the Muslim. We're not going to talk about Christianity.
Yeah,
we should.
Okay.
We should.
Okay, fair enough. Where do I begin? Igbos.
At the beginning.
Okay. You don't want to know about the beginning. Okay, I got a leaflet here which may help you. Yeah. Deep down, every Igbo person, they believe they're Jews or they're Hebrew in origin, and this is the either they have all these rituals, circumcision, keeping the women separate when they're menstruating. All this is built into their culture, rituals of washing and so on. So when Christianity surfaced, as I said last time, they are practicing Leviticus-based rituals and behavior. So it was easy for them to say, well, you know, what God is saying here is what we do. By the names they call their children, by their if you carry out if you like, something that they deem an abomination, the land itself is polluted. You have to get somewhere of cleansing the land. And it's all scriptural. But what I've come across in my little search about the Igbos is like the actual language is so rich and it has a lot of resonance with the Hebrew word itself. Okay, which one do I begin?
When you say with the Hebrew word,
with the Hebrew language,
okay,
it appears that the Igbo might have been a preserved ancient Hebrew language. Yeah. If I have a board here, I'll draw out something for you. But the word hallelujah. Okay, now I hope to some Christians they don't sound an abomination. The hallelujah has certain words there which has Hebrew language in it. The elu means heaven, the sky. Le is to look, yeah. Ha means him or her. So Ya means to hallelujah means actually lift his name high.
Yeah.
When you look at it from the Igbo point of view, there's a lot more. When you say, the Igbos always say Tufiakwa. You must have watched lots and lots of Hollywood movie, and they swear Tufiakwa. That's an exclamatory prayer. But Tufika is actually a Hebrew word for prayer. This thing we say kwenu, means all of you agree, and so on.
Just hold it for the time being. 9004.
Yes, thanks for having me. I appreciate the words that are being on Thousand Power put out this morning. It's a question, because I was reading and looking up some documentaries about the Igbo, and obviously the original Igbo roots and the worship which they've adhered to. And you know what, a lot of times I've realized in the past, even growing up in a Christian environment, very strong Jehovah's Witness, bareface, everything is demonized. But I realized, say you went to Africa now, and a man came up to you and wanted to cut a chicken's neck or goat's neck, drained its blood into a bowl, took a hyssop bush and wanted to sprinkle you with it. Most man, Christian, would run and say, what kind of demonism is this? But actually, that's exactly what the Levites used to do in regards to the purification ceremony. So exactly what the brother's saying there, many of our people have tried to keep the original laws which were given in regards to the Bible or the scriptures. And so it's true. But then they came in and they demonized it. And so they're trying to come, especially with the Christianity or the New Testament, dare I say, or Greek scriptures. And that's where Paul comes in. Because Paul was the one that said, you don't need to do this no more. And if you're looking at, he actually contradicts a lot of what the Messiah said and the ancient law said. But most Christianity don't follow the words of Yeshua, they follow the words of Paul. And that's where a major confusion comes in, because Paul was doing his own thing. Paul was going around telling people you don't need faith without works is good. You can eat food sacrificed to idols. You don't need to follow the law. And yet James and all the apostles, or those who were with the Messiah, were saying, no, you do have to do that. But the problem is, it's not like instant messaging now, where if somebody writes a biblical letter, in 2-3 weeks it comes back round and everybody sees it. In them time, if you wrote a letter, it could be months, even years before the congregation of Christ or the Messiah would even see that. They'd say, no, that's not right. And you see, that's the problem. At that time then, there was a diversion away from the true worship, parallel with the true worship running. And it's actually held all in the same book. But most people don't really, they put it all together, because at the end of it, the 66 books that most people are looking at now were picked and decided upon by Christendom, the actual nation or the people that were rejecting or apostatizing away from the ways of the law. And they're the ones who picked the 66 books. So that's what I say to people. You say that Christendom and all of this is against the Lord, yet you're using the same books that they picked out.
Got to spare one of those?
So where is it you're from, my brother? What's your background?
My name is Germania.
No. I said, what background are you from?
How you mean, in what sense?
You're from a Nigerian background?
Can I just?
My parents were born in the Caribbean, Trinidad.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm Grenada, and then obviously, and I've just gone back to Ghana. There's African ancestry. I know, say we're from the land, whether it's Nigeria, Ghana. I'm going to find out, but that would just be a confirmation to me. We know where we're from. I just came back from Elmina, the point of no return. I know where my people are from. You get me? So I'll find out the details later. But I know that. You see, that's the thing, though. You've got the sons of Cush and the sons of Shem, and over the years they've differentiated. They made the sons of Ham black. They made the sons of Shem olive or European, and the sons of Japheth European. But the thing is, though, in those times there, everybody was black. The only one that may have been different was Japheth, because Japheth was the progenitor of the Gentiles, or the Europeans, or in between that, they would have been the Romans. So when you hear Gentiles, Romans, Europeans, that's how it is. Now, most Jews these days say they're Ashkenazi Jews. Ashkenazi. Well, if you look in Genesis, Ashkenaz was the grandson of Japheth. He had nothing to do with Shem. Now, I've got 2 Jewish dictionaries, and both of them say that Ham is the progenitor of all the black races, Egypt, Kush, Lud, Pots, but not the Negroes. Both of them, two dictionaries. One's Oxford and the other one is Zondervan's. Okay. And I saw it on YouTube, so I bought the dictionary. Check it yourself. And it specifically say that the Negroes are not the sons of Ham. So the Negroes, or those who were carried in the transatlantic, are the sons of Shem. Now the thing for me then is the differentiation. Is the sons of Cush, are the sons of Cush enemies to the sons of Shem? Because you see in pockets throughout the Bible about the Most High Yah saying, never go back to Egypt, or the Prophet saying, never go back to Egypt. But when you look over and looking between the lines, Egypt or Cush was never nothing but good to the sons of Shem. You know what I mean? They took in Abraham, they took in Israel, or Jacob. They gave them the best land in Israel. They gave them Goshen. They actually gave them the better land than their own people. You understand? So when I look through the course, and then whenever there was problems, the Israelites or the sons of Shem would run to Egypt. So when I look through the course of the Bible, I see that the sons of Cush have been nothing but good to the sons of Shem. Don't get me wrong, there was some, as with always, there's always going to be nations which you're not going to get with tribal factions, national factions, but it wouldn't have been a black man against a white-skinned man. It would have been black man against black man, each trying to conquer or assert their authority. So you see, they completely whitewashed everything, and then it gets confusing. But now it's all coming out. Because these Jews are actually, for a long time, saying that they're Ashkenazi, which means they have nothing to do with the sons of Shem.
I would like... Hold on a moment, my brother. This is very impressive. This is very impressive biblical knowledge, and as an Africanist, I have problems with it, and the problems with it arise from this, and it also connects with the account that our brother in the studio was giving. The text that we tended to have available in the last few hundred years has been the King James Version of the Bible. And we overuse that and misuse that to persuade ourselves of all kinds of stuff that can be deeply questionable. Now, the Jewish books are derived from their time in Egypt. Because we don't know what is in the Egyptian books, we haven't bothered to know what is there. And even though there are good scholars who've written persuasively...
Sorry, 1 second, Cecil. My brother, could you turn on the device that you're listening to, yeah?
Yeah. Even though there are persuasive African scholars that have told us a great deal about the Egyptian origins of Judaism, of Christianity, of Islam, we're still setting ourselves on a pathway where the core doctrine is what gets generated by the King James Version and some of the books that have been excluded from that, which we also know of. And it's really quite problematic. Take, for example, the notion that the Igbos are in some way connected with ancient Israel. Why? The only source for that is some biblical stuff that may be enriched by Christian pastors' knowledge of Greek and some Christian pastors' knowledge of Hebrew. None of them know any ancient Egyptian, and none of them are particularly interested in the ancient Egyptian connection. There are Africans who are interested in the ancient Egyptian connections, and I would like to know what Diop would have done with that material that you're talking about, because he did the same thing with Wolof and with people in Senegal, and it doesn't take them back to ancient Israel. It takes them back to ancient Egypt. So, and some of this literature, I vaguely know. Some of it, I mean, I used to know much better than I do now. Some of it's gone out of my head. But there's really...
There's old age, is it?
It's exactly old. It is exactly old. But the truth of the matter is that when folk construct this alleged connection between, let us say, Igbo and ancient Israel, what are they actually doing? All they're doing is relying on biblical material enriched by connection that can be made via a good knowledge or a bad knowledge of Greek, and also via a good knowledge or bad knowledge of Hebrew. And the potential for distortion is very great. And when you add into that all of what's missing because people don't know Egyptian, don't know hieroglyphics, it's really, it leaves us reaching for stuff that we don't have to reach for. Who were the ancient Hebrews? Why do we want to identify with them? Why do we want to identify with these people, which, as the brother was saying, were facilitated into ancient Egypt, facilitated there, and then there came a moment when one of their nationalists said, we're being oppressed in this place, we must go back to the land, this land that our ancestors, that our God had told our ancestors to go and kill the inhabitants and take over. Right? And that's what we're identifying with. We have this grand African heritage, untainted by the stuff that comes out of the Christian Bible, and yet we're insisting on tainting ourselves with the stuff that comes out of the Christian Bible. Why are we doing that?
Brother Kwame, permit me to come in. So it's really hit it on the head. Because if we are from ancient Hebrew, we end up coming from from Babylonians, aren't we? Mesopotamian. We go even further back.
Taking ourselves completely unnecessarily out of Africa.
But the issues are there's another spin to the whole thing. Let me share with you what little. It starts in Egypt. There is a group of Igbos who currently practicing, if you like, Hebraic worship, currently Sabbatarians and so on. They say that Gad was one of the sons of Jacob. In fact, was the seventh son of Jacob. And if you look in Genesis 46:16,
12 of them.
Okay, then Eri, his fifth son, since Gad person had several children. His fifth son is called Eri. And he had two younger brothers called Arodi and Ereli. They are supposed to be the true ancestors of Biafrans. Now, if you just follow this, and then we see how this squares up to current. And they believe that because of the serious persecution of the Israelites, this is before they moved away from Egypt.
There wasn't any serious persecution of the Israelites in Egypt. There's ancient Hebrew lie.
Ancient Hebrew, well, we can argue about it. Moses did appear and something happened.
Anyway, that was a nationalist move from within that community.
Indeed.
They were very happy in ancient Egypt. The nationalist line to get them out required convincing the ancient Hebrews that they were oppressed in ancient Egypt. And so it's a lie. What their prophet, the man who became their prophet at that moment, Moses wanted to do was get them back to their ancestral gift. The ancestral gift was itself deplorable. How can you have a God who allegedly tells you that what he wants you to do is go to a land that's already occupied? The real people there, right? Because we read the Bible from a ancient Hebraic line. The real heroes of that place, the people who are defending their own land, the Samsons and the Goliaths and so on, get presented to us as villains. They're not villains. What they were doing, just as the Palestinians are still doing, is defending their land from some people who didn't belong there, who came in allegedly because their God had gifted it to them to take it over. And it cannot work, and we cannot subscribe to that. It's wickedness.
Sorry, we have a call on the line. Brother Justice? Sorry, stand up, Brother Justice. 9004. You have a quick point to make?
And I have another point connected with that.
My brother, can I speak?
Yeah, but you need to turn on that listening device that you have around you,
Okay. Is that...
Move away from it if someone else is listening to it.
No, there's no. I've got no radio. I've got no radio on.
Well, you probably have it on speakerphone then, isn't it?
I am. Yeah. 1 second.
All right. Because it's very off-putting for the listeners as myself.
You know.
Yeah. Wonderful.
All right. So what I was saying in regards to what the brother said is absolutely right. I have no disagreements with that, because if you look very carefully, from Genesis, Moses supposedly wrote Genesis or started writing it in 1513 BCE. And apparently, according to man's history or Bible history, human life started in 426, about the 420s BCE. So you have about 3,000 years, 3,000 years before Moses started writing anything down. That's one. Second thing is that he starts about Adam and Eve and so forth, but he only started writing that after his having been in Egypt. And the fact is, for you to become a priest in Egypt takes 40 years. And Moses left after 40 years from Egypt. So after having all this information is when he went into the wilderness supposedly for another 40 years. Married his black wife, which they try and say she was different. But anyway, married his queen or whatever, his woman, and then came back to supposedly rescue the Israelites. Okay.
Have we lost him?
It sounds like we lost him.
Yeah. Well, the only final point that I would like to make is, it's like the Europeans saying that the Greeks left ancient Greece, came across the Sahara, came across that other 2,000 miles, and landed up in the middle of Nigeria to teach the Igbo and the Beni to make sculpture. The same kind of thing is happening in further south in Nigeria, which is actually the same area, really. And what is happening is that in order for the Igbo to have that kind of ancestry, in a historical movement where people are moving from ancient Egypt because they come under attack there, where people are moving from North Africa because they come under attack there, people who are African, and then instead of trying to connect their history to those real movements in African history arising from real invasions that have pushed people south, or even the drying up of the desert, which has also pushed people south, you have a set of people in Africa, right, and not just in Nigeria, but particularly in Nigeria, Sabbatharians or whatever, who ignore the reality and connect themselves to movement out of ancient Israel. When did they leave there? And why did they leave there? And what is it that they there's some fundamental nonsense happening.
I can understand everything you're saying, because if you it is also, one has to remember that it is also possible that the Igbos have always been in Igbo land all this time.
They've been there a long time.
Okay, they don't have to have come from anywhere else.
Absolutely.
Okay, just that it's because some of them think before Adam, the Igbo have actually lived in that part of the. So there's that movement as well. But what I'm explaining to you is why.
You mean there's Igbo before Adam?
Yeah, there's a story to go with that.
Adam is just the other day, you know.
I thought Adam was the original man and his wife was the original woman.
That's part of the problem.
You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. There's the other people who believe that before Adam, the Igbo was actually staying where they were. They arose from the ground, and so on and so forth. So the issue is, why do they feel intrinsically Hebraic? That's the problem. So there's a group, therefore, that have looked into...
They don't feel intrinsically Hebraic. So they feel Hebraic after the Hebrew Bible has been introduced to them.
That is the point. Now, the point is, before the Hebrew Bible arrived, where before the Christians arrived...
The practices might have been there.
I'm coming. Before the Christian arrived, these people were already practicing what was in the Bible.
No,
that is reality.
Right.
And if you look at Ekwano-Olaudah,
that's possible.
Yeah, Ekwano-Olaudah's writing tells you right?
Yes.
That these people, the way they were practicing,
but it doesn't have
nothing
to be
to do with Christian arriving, because Christianity
and nothing
hasn't
to do,
arrived then,
and nothing to do with Israelites arriving either.
I can say that's possibility that there is something that is indigenous to them.
Yes, and
There's
where
no
did it
harm
come
in
from?
that.
It's much easier to derive it from ancient Egypt than from movements from North Africa into that part of Africa.
That's exactly what we're saying. They left ancient Egypt.
Yes.
They left ancient Egypt because,
with
as I
those
said,
practices.
Yes, they left ancient
which
Egypt.
people who went in the opposite direction also practiced.
Exactly. So
and we get them via the Bible.
So remember what I said. If you extrapolate from ancient Egypt, you end up them coming from Iran, where Abraham left in the first place. Yeah, you can keep going. Okay, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But because of the setup from Egypt, these Gad's children, they ended up being part of the progenitors, what became, in their understanding, Igbo land finders. Because there are towns and villages named after these people.
Yes.
There's a tree called the Trinity tree, which they have evidence from their opinion or that they got this Hebraic connection.
Yes.
That's which you can shake.
Well,
Right.
I think that the Hebraic connections are recent. I think that the practices I agree with you that practices predate Christianity, but I do not believe that the practices are anything to do with arrivals from any ancient Israel. Okay. And I don't believe those connections at all.
We got Sister Empress on the line. Sister Empress, go ahead.
Ancient Israel hasn't formed because they haven't formed it yet. They were
this great discussion and historical fact and archaeological facts discussing on galaxy. It's just a great privilege. Now, brothers, I would like to ask a question in relation to Lagos.
Yes. Ask it, please.
The question I'd like to ask is, when was Lagos formed? And what was that? Is it on the peninsula?
My brother may be better able to answer that. I don't know when Lagos was formed.
Lagos is a name which the Portuguese gave to that part.
Yeah, there was a Lagos in Portugal.
It used to be called Eko. And Eko was formed by the Benin Empire. Yeah? EKO is the name of Lagos as we have it today. Eko. And you hear the people in Nigeria called Eko Lagos. Lagos, if you ask the Portuguese or Spanish, they call it Laos. That's how they call it. So there is a place in Europe called Laos or Lagos. It's to do with the slave trade. To make Lagos, now you're probably going to ask me the exact date. I think it's in 1906 or 1904. There's a bombardment. A naval bombardment means you have your big guns in the boat, in the ship, that just hurls artillery into a town. So there was a naval bombardment of Lagos, which made them which subdued them. In other words, there's a lot of gunfire from the British mighty navy that allowed them to decimate lots of places around Lagos. So the king that was there had to surrender to the British people and say, okay, you've beaten us. Lagos now became a crown colony. Okay? So from that crown colony, it was separate from what they did around Calabar and the eastern part of Nigeria. But they had to merge the eastern part of Nigeria with Lagos to form the Southern Protectorate.
Yes.
From the Southern Protectorate, then they join it up with the Northern Protectorate before you form Nigeria.
Yes.
I'm not sure if that's helped you.
Right. It does inform us more in terms of the historical fact that you know. But let's go back into Eko itself. Tell us about Eko before it was Lagos. Tell us about the historical facts, perhaps maybe 300 years before or ancient as you possibly can go back. Because the reason why I asked that question, I do a little bit of research because I need to know my background. And one of the things we've come across is that the area, that region, was actually absorbed by the sea. And from what I have researched and recognized now, is that they're now building a wall, which they're placing tons of rocks within the sea to prevent the sea again to to take the land. So there is billions being invested in that region. So therefore, hence the reason why the economical factors, the environmental factors, and why is the Nigerian government investing in Lagos in such magnitude in terms of ECO, in terms of the climatic factors that had already affected that region, because the sea had already reclaimed apparently the land hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago. So why is it being such engineering impact? And is there a Jewish population there? Is there a Asian population there? The infrastructure, the whole economic, because I would not consider that it's only African people who are there in that region, because there is so many other issues inside Nigeria, and billions being invested in that region.
Well, I think you touched on an important point. If you have one seaport in whole UK, right? Let's say you have one in Dover, and they're trying to reclaim the land around Dover, and you keep pouring sand into it and building a sort of artificial land, but the sea never stops. It's always relentless, isn't it? Eventually, it will erode away all those sands you poured in. I don't know how long it's going to take. That's the natural process of, not that I've studied oceanography, but the key thing is that why do you, as you asked, why does a government carry on pouring sand and investing in an area like Lagos, which is congested, when you had the deepest, seaport in that part, a place called Calabar, which has been used since 14th century or so, 15th century. People have been docking in Calabar. It's supposed to have the deepest port. You can develop that. You have Port Harcourt, named after Foreign Minister of Commonwealth Harcourt. They call it port. It's not Portokeke, but Port Harcourt. So that place is available. Then you have Warri, you have Sapele. Why concentrate all that money, billions and billions of pounds or dollars, in developing one port? It's an economic, sort of short-sightedness. I'm not sure if I'm helping you, but there's a price to pay in the future if you just keep pouring sand and reclaiming land. We are so fortunate that you don't have all these hurricanes coming around that coast. But God forbid, if any of that should happen, all this will be washed away. But anyway, that's short-sighted politics.
You send it to us, don't you?
I think the government of Nigeria will say that.
I was just saying that you said they don't have hurricane around that part, but I said they send it to us, don't they?
That's true. I don't know if it's them. It's more nature. I think the government of Nigeria would say that they're not pouring sand; they're pouring rock. And the sister correctly said that what they're putting in there is rock as the base for later land reclamation.
So, in other words, the government is building the engineering aspect of it is building what one would call, in other words, a massive wall to prevent the already place that was submerged in water to reclaim the land from the sea, in other words. But eventually, nature will take its course.
It may or may not. Right. Let's be clear about this. There are all kinds of places in which land reclamation on quite a large scale has happened. Guyana, for example, in our part of the world, it's a seawall that keeps most of coastal Guyana from being underwater because it's objectively below the sea, and they learned to do that and did it when the Dutch were there, and all of those Guyanese plantations on the coast of Guyana were empolded. They were on reclaimed land. Right, Holland is built on that principle. You have Jamaica, the capital, our airport, which is on a little strip of land that connects Port Royal to Kingston. It's being washed away. And when I was last there, maybe eight years ago, no, it's more recent than that, 2015. That piece of land that connects Port Royal to Kingston is in peril, and they actually have Chinese I think that's who the contractors were, trying to save it from the sea. Because if it's not saved, the route to the to the airport disappears. You have to build bridge, all kind of thing. So now, the issue in Nigeria isn't whether Lagos was once underwater, which it may or may not have been. The issue is whether, as our brother is correctly saying, there are other and better places in Nigeria where you don't have to do that reclamation, because Port Harcourt or Calabar or so on are natural harbors ready to be developed for the importation. Kingston has a wonderful harbor, and so on, and they exist all over the world. Why is Nigeria doing Lagos rather than? And one of the reasons is that the big ones are in Igbo land, and they don't want to put it there. Yeah.
All right. It's what, 8 minutes to? Right. Just before I bring Rashaw Singh in, all right, would you like to repeat any events you have coming up?
Oh, only to remind people that the 1st of August March, 11 o'clock at Windrush Square in Brixton is happening, and we want our people to come out. So that's the first thing. And in connection with that march, preceding it, this Friday at 336 Brixton Road, we will have our wonderful sister Esther Stanford, who will be addressing us on issues with somebody else whose name I regret I don't remember or know. Will be speaking to us. So please come along, 336 Brixton Road, the PASCF workshop. We had a splendid one last week delivered by our sister, so 2 in a row. Come. And then also at Mama Art Centre, which is 366A High Road, Tottenham. I will be leading that discussion around reparation issues. So those are the 2 things I want to remind people. 3 things I want to remind people about.
And the event you have coming up, Bernard?
Yes, I just want to reiterate what my brother Cecil just said. I think the 1st of August, all Biafrans, wherever you are, I think it's about time you come out and find out more. About this reparation we're talking about. At the back of most of our minds, so they're not going to pay us on that day. But that's not the issue. The issue is begin the steps which will make people understand the connection between our brothers in the West Indies and our brothers in Africa. And you'll be shocked that the flag they'll be flying on that day has Biafran flag as well, and we'd better make sure you understand it. This is a UNIA flag, isn't it?
Universal
Negro Improvement Association
and African Communities League.
Indeed. So that's my Biafran brothers. That's our flag. Except that we stuck the rising sun in the middle, and that to us, as somebody mentioned earlier, the red obviously is symbolic of the bloodshed and the dark is the morning. The rising sun is the glorious future, and the green is the prosperity. So, but when those 2 flags fly next to each other, it brings some dramatic explanation to
I'm glad you made that connection, my brother, because the whole of global Africa needs to be on this issue of reparations. And it's very important that we remember that a leading continental African like Kwame Nkrumah, he called it not reparation but restitution. And the march is not just about enslavement. It's about the Mangamizi, and we say that the Mangamizi is continuing and deepening. So it's about oppression under enslavement. It's about colonial oppression, which Africa was subjected to. The colonialists killed 10 million people in Congo at the in the early part of the 20th century. So continental Africans have an issue in restitution.
That's
right? Ghana's golden stool is not in Ghana, somewhere here, I believe. All of Benin stuff is here, and it's a long story of their theft. Continental Africans have an issue in the matter in exactly the way that us diasporan Africans have. And the issue that we Africans have with the West isn't that they enslaved us, they colonized us, they're still killing us in numbers in places where it suits them. Look at what's happening in the Congo now. So when we say stop the Mangamizi, that's what we're talking about, as well as enslavement. and continental Africans have an interest in it.
So come and learn more.
Yeah.
As well as the Biafrans pushing to make the Biafran situation more clear to the planet. The Biafran Education Awareness Day on the 11th of August, where we're privileged to have lectures to explain more about Biafra, so we minimize the shedding of blood in innocent Africans.
Is there a phone number you want to give out?
The number to contact is 3759. I say that again.
Say it again.
07900603759. And if you want an email address, is justuknc.ipob@gmail.com.
Say that again.
Just justuknc.ipob@gmail.com.
All right. Rasha Singh, I know you're there, yeah? So if you can give out the details of where people just to sign a petition, then you can elaborate on whatever you wish to elaborate on, yeah?
Right. Thank you very much for that, brother Kwame.
And unfortunately, the reason why listen, the reason why I keep cutting you off here is because there's only one line at the moment.
I understand that, my brother. We know that. I keep on calling. But anyway, I was able to listen to our great professor. He's always our professor here amongst the great Rastafarians here. And as what he said, before we go into the website, if you look at it, knowledge came down from Upper Kemet, which is present-day Egypt. It came down to Ethiopia. It came down to what we call Lower Kemet, which is present-day Egypt. It then went east, and it then went west. So if you look at the interpretation of what the King James and the European ecumenical translation, you'll find that is their interpretation. If you go to China, you'll find that the very same fundamental teaching that came from the great ones that came down from Upper Kemet, you'll find that they essentially came from the same thing. So that's their interpretation. Really and truly, we as an African, we should be following none of those interpretations, as what His Majesty said. Religion are rules and regulation made by man, and it was supposed to bring him to an understanding of the universal creator, the spirituality that connects with. But because of the corruption of man, his religious has become indecisive, all manner of things. But we are spiritual, and we've always been spiritual because the spiritual universe is what created we. So we must understand, as we said, the King James Version has nothing to do with us. It is the European Jacobian translation of their own ecumenical understanding, where they, if you look at their so-called understanding, they've used it to wipe out other nations because they've got a God that is a jealous God. They've got a God that tells them that if you find people settled in their land for thousands of years, you must go and make war against them, take their land, and enslave them. So the whole history of Israel, there wasn't even a nation called Israel. That is the same. Israel is modern Britain, modern Europe. That is Israel. That is why we have the problem in the Middle East. So let us not take on, as what His Majesty says, religion, because every nation that came out of the human race, they will have their own interpretation that came from the knowledge of Upper Kemet to Lower Kemet. And that's what it is, my brothers and sisters. So thank you very much, Professor. Wonderful guest that you had. Let us go into the petition because that is historical. We're now taking responsibility of our own region. In this instance, we are protecting the ganja from the same Israel, Jacobian, the cannabis. So this petition is to protect our environment from GM seeds that are being brought in from Canada, Israel, America, Europe, that is going to destroy our original strain that has the medicinal benefit, which the world knows as ganja. So the website, my beloved brothers, is www.change.org. / the letter P for Prime Minister / Mr. because he's only a man, Mr. - Andrew as the name Prince Andrew - Holness. This petition is very important to let the Jamaican government know that what they're doing to our industry by giving license to foreigners and ignoring the local people who has knowledge of this product more than any one of them that is coming here with their so-called ideas, trying to enslave us as they did on the cotton fields of America. They want us, our farmers, my lovely brothers and sisters. We must
Brother Rashashin.
Contracted farmers.
Brother Rashashin, I'll have to stop it there because the next presenter, I'm gone over time into her show now, yeah? So, Sister Shanice will be back.
Again.
Sister Shanice will be back on Wednesday, so hopefully the dialogue will continue. And
you know, we've been engaged with her constantly since she's been on the continent. We've also engaged her with some of our founding foundation members. One of them is Man Soldier, who is the cousin of Mugabe, and out of his tribe, the Lion tribe, is the new president, has been elected. So we're looking positively to the Lion Kingdom, the rising of the lion that bears the cross and wears the crown. And remember, you spoke of 2 flags. You must never forget the Ethiopian flag with the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah in it, with all the African flags.
I got to run now, yeah?
Sovereign reality of Africa.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, I just want to thank Brother Cecil again and Brother Justice for coming in and, you know, having this discussion on Nigeria. It's a never-ending discussion we need to have as African people because, you know, we need to heal. You know, in whatever form we need to heal, you know. And better we heal as one people than to be continued to be, divided and ruled by other people. Yeah? So, thank you very much, Brother Justice. Thank you, Brother Cecil. And this was part 2 of the 2-part program that we have here on the Nigeria/Biafra situation that is going on, yeah? Right. Next Monday is the 30th, right? I believe so. Yeah, next Monday is the 30th, and I don't think the Great Show will be on because we'll be down there at the court supporting Galaxy Radio and Dr. Abu, yeah? So until the following week where we're open, that Brother Cecil will give some history lesson for the younger listeners. So all you parents at... African prisons in Britain. Yes. And then we can, you know, give them a little, what we call carriers beyond the history and also African history of Africa as well, yeah? Details. So, Brother Cecil will do that in 2 weeks' time, 2 strong time, yeah? All right, so stay strong, my people. Empress Culture is in the house and she's roaring like a lioness to take over. So let me just vacate the seat and let she take over like she normally do. Yeah, Empress Culture.
Community to come out and join us in taking action in support of Galaxy Afiwe on Monday,
the 30th of July,
from 10 a.m. in the morning. Come with your whistles, come with your foghorns, come and support Dr. Abu Ratata and Galaxy Afiwe in accordance with Article 7 of the Human Rights Act 1998 and Clause 61 of the Magna Carta 1215. We demand that no lawbreaker can be a law enforcer. We refuse to be governed by hypocrisy. Any unlawful conviction will result in indefinite community action. Touch one, touch all.
The 30th of July in London Crown Courts. We need to see the family there en masse. Dr. Abu Ratata representing the Galaxy family, broadcasting right here. So we're going to be in defense, as always, standing up for our repertory rights, you know, our truth and our justice.
Our community platform, giving a voice to the voiceless. Together we demand truth and justice.
I have a question to ask. Who can tell me the meaning of Nigeria? I am not a Nigerian. I am a Biafra. Biafra is our father's land. Chukwuobiama is our God.